My villain era is for women who are done people pleasing. We're done shrinking, done putting everybody else first. And it's time to set up boundaries without apology and step into the next chapter of your life and start living the life you actually want. Hey, everybody, I'm Victoria. I'm your host. Today, I'm going to tell you about an experience that I had in Montana this summer. So last month in June, my family went to Montana on vacation and something really magical happened that I wasn't expecting. And I want to share it with you, not just because it's a lovely story, but I want to have a conversation about how we can replicate this in your life too. So my family lives in Texas and we took a road trip to Montana. We wanted to go to Yellowstone National Park. Now, it is a long, long drive. It is 8 hours just to get out of the state of Texas. We live in Central Texas, and it's a full 8 hours. If you're going towards the East Coast, maybe it's a little bit shorter, but to get anywhere north or west, it's a full 8 hours. So we turned it into a few-day road trip, and we stopped at cool places along the way, and we ended up staying in Big Sky, Montana, which is about an hour away from Bozeman. Big Sky is also a ski resort, which I did not know at the time. And I grew up skiing back in the days where there were places to ski that weren't a gazillion dollars. so we were staying in this little ski town, absolutely beautiful. And we decided to go to Yellowstone National Park, and I had never been there, honestly, I wasn't super interested. I'm not really a nature girl, even though I love plants. Like, there's insects outside, let's just say. So we end up going to Yellowstone and had such a great experience, came back, and I was so dizzy. The next day I was dizzy. I had a headache. These are all symptoms of altitude sickness. So Yellowstone's about 7,500 feet. I am a sea level dweller. And so for a lot of people, altitude is rough. So there was at least a day and a half where I wasn't feeling good. And I was really bummed because if you ever go to Big Sky in the summertime, on Wednesdays, they turn the whole town basically into a farmer's market. And I was just like, oh gosh, let me go and experience I can only imagine like the handmade crafts and like the huckleberry jam and like all the things, right, that you could find there in this cute mountain town. So, but I wasn't feeling good. Bottom line, we didn't end up making it to the market, but if you're ever in Big Sky, please go. So the next day, my son says, hey, I want to go to this waterfall. There's a waterfall that's really close by. It says it's a 1.7-mile hike. And I go, okay, I could definitely do that. And the thing that's always interesting to me about hiking is it's like you hear it rated, it's like 2 miles or 3 miles or whatever. But when there's altitude changes and it's like 200 feet altitude difference, like it's a lot different than walking in your neighborhood, right? So anyway, we decide that we're going to go to this waterfall. I decide I'm going to go because at a minimum, I need to ground. Now, something you may or may not know about me is I am all about the woo. I am totally a woo-woo girl. Even though I have a master's degree in finance, even though I worked in the corporate world for a really long time, I'm all about the woo and leaning into your intuition. In the fall, I have something exciting coming up that I call business intuition. And we're going to be using your intuition to help you in the practical things like your business. Because, friends, I keep talking with women who are like, I feel like I'm a failure, or I feel like, this business isn't working for me or whatever. And we are having the same conversations. And so I'm going to put together a workshop just for us so we can talk about things like the fact that, like, first of all, girl, you are not a failure. And that maybe you just need to listen to your intuition more and leverage that. So that's coming up this fall. So stay tuned for that. So wherever you're watching, please subscribe to make sure you get more information on that if that's something you're into. Anyway, so I'm all about the woo. And I love to garden, so I'm all about nature. And I thought maybe I would be interested in looking at the wildflowers and the trees. But there's something about the trees, you guys. There's something about the trees that's really magical. And even I do what I call light walk with people where we help tap into your intuition and see what your intuition says. When I do, and if I'll put the link below if you guys are interested in that. Um, when I do that, I do it in a park around nature, and a lot of times I'll just put my hand on a tree. Trees are grounding. Trees take and clear out that gunky energy. And I don't know how it works because, I don't exactly know how energy works either. But what I do know is there's something special about the trees. So, okay, back to my story about Montana. We are hiking, and I suddenly start stopping at the trees. And I put my hand on the tree and I just say thank you. Like, thank you for this moment. Thank you for this beautiful forest. And we continue. Now, this is not unusual for me. My kids know that I'm going to commune with the flowers and the trees and the rocks and everything, right? So nobody's really surprised. Oldest son was with me. My husband and my younger son had gone ahead. And what I thought was fascinating, what started happening as I put my hand on the tree was I felt this overwhelming desire to cry. Not just like, like a little teeny tiny tear, but sob, like ugly girl cry, right? And so I'm trying not to cry because there's other people on the trail, like whatever. And what am I going to say when they ask me why I'm crying? I don't know. I'm just like, I'm touching the tree and it makes me feel like I'm going to cry. And what I found was after, like, the 4th or 5th tree, and maybe it was the 6th tree, I just sat there and I cried, and I did it silently so my son wouldn't be, like, he wouldn't worry about me, and I heard the tree, and for those of you who think this is weird, feel free to click off or not listen again or whatever, this is too weird for you, but I heard the tree say, "You were meant to come here. We're here. We're going to take ancestral trauma that you were never meant to carry." And I could see in my mind's eye, and maybe it was me, maybe it was ancestors, like, I don't know, but just women who had gone through a lot of shit, right? They had gone through some stuff and they were in emotional pain, suffering, whatever. I could see in my mind's eye. And I was like, holy smokes, my body is carrying all of this. And so I just stood there with the tree and until I felt like everything that I needed to release was gone. And then I thanked the tree and then I continued on my way. Now, this sounds like a wild story for some of you. Some of you are going to be like, girl, I talk to my plants. So it's not going to be a crazy story. But what I got out of this was a couple things that I wanted to share with you. One, if I ever need a proof that I have support, that's it. Think about what all the things were that had to line up just right in order for me to get my tush to Montana from Texas and go to that forest. And maybe I wasn't supposed to go to that specific forest. Maybe it could have been another forest, but you know what I'm saying? What had to line up to get me there in the first place? And then I was thinking about it. That must have been so important that the universe rearranged itself so that I could physically be there, first of all. And secondly, I wondered if some of the symptoms I was experiencing with altitude actually had to do with me holding on to these things that I didn't really need to hold on to. Like, what portion of this was I never supposed to carry? So how does this relate to you in your life? Okay. So, first of all, what are you carrying that maybe you were never meant to carry? I'm talking about like family junk. I'm talking about like, maybe someone said something to you a while back and it's just stuck with you. It lives rent free in your head. What are the things that you were never meant to carry? Now, there's all sorts of things that you could think of. There's like ancestral trauma and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But we can release it. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's the book The Body Keeps the Score, which talks about how trauma actually lives in the body. But also, emotionally, we hold on to things. And it's like this. It's like we're holding on to the rope with both hands, right? And what ends up happening is like if you're holding like this for so long, you're going to get exhausted, right? What things do we need to let go of? What things were you never meant to hold? That's the first thing I wanted to share with you. Really, what things are we carrying around? Whose voice lives rent free in your head? Because let me tell you, sometimes it's not your own. So this whole situation really made me think about what am I carrying every day? And it was surprising that I ended up coming home and I have not been feeling well. And turns out like, yeah, end up seeing a couple doctors, like, and I'm on the mend, like I'm feeling better, everything's fine. But it also makes me think about like how our physical body is impacted by these things. And maybe I needed to release this so badly that I was sick. Who knows? But here's the other thing I want you to think about. This experience that I had was in a container, if you will. Okay, so we're in a forest that has zero cell service because we're down in this little ravine area. And ask me how it is that we had to hike down and then back up to get to a waterfall. I don't know. It was beautiful. It's called Osil Falls. I think it's Oasel. I don't know, in Big Sky. And there was a certain container there. One, no headphones, no music, no distraction, just me and my thoughts. Two, I had to be open to literally having a conversation with the trees and open to releasing what my body was trying to release. That's why I feel like my body was trying to make me cry. And so that was a whole container. So how are we cultivating a container for you to have an experience such as this? Like, you don't have to drive to Montana, which is a long way to drive. You don't have to drive to Montana to have the same kind of experience. But how are we cultivating this same container to make it possible? Okay, so let's say you live in the city or something. Um, what I would do is get a favorite park. Find a bunch of different parks. I know it's summertime. I know you're going to be sweating in places you don't want to be sweating, but maybe you go first thing in the morning. Maybe you go right before sunset and check out different places in nature. I myself love a botanical garden, and it's really funny because my oldest son, who's 23, he's going to be 24 this August, he loves a botanical garden. So if we go to a new city, he'll be like, "Did they have a botanical garden?" Because it's beautiful. They're well cultivated. They have all sorts of um, fun plants and things like that. And again, it's a container. So maybe you think this week about how you're making room for magic in your life. How are we going to cultivate a container that can even happen? And how you can release some of these things that you've been holding on to. It's like holding a backpack full of rocks and not even realizing it. And for me, it's really made me think about how I'm putting together my home. we just moved into this house in April. It's a brand new house, which I've never owned a new house before, so that's kind of exciting. So, brand new house, huge yard, and it's making me think about how am I going to cultivate my own little backyard sanctuary so I can go outside and have this experience. And maybe it's not the same experience. Maybe it's not like the tree talking to me, but maybe it's this experience of I don't have to hold on to everything. I don't have to be like this holding onto the rope. I could drop the stinking rope. It's like, um, I don't know if you guys have dogs. I had the best, worst dog in the world. She was like, didn't know she was a dog. That's why she was the worst dog. Yellow lab that didn't like water. I mean, I don't know what happened. But so she loved to play with her rope, of course. And of course, the ropes get so nasty. So I was always like, oh, I didn't want to touch it. But anyway, she loved to play with the rope and she'd bring you the rope and then she'd want you to hold on to the rope and she'd tug and tug and tug. And the second that you finally dropped the rope, she was less interested in it. I mean, maybe she'd come bring it around again, but the whole thing was she wanted you to tug at the rope. It's these two ends of tugging at each other. And when you drop the rope, that's when you let go. When you drop the rope, that's when you can release all this stuff like that you've been clinging onto. And you may not even know that you've been clinging onto this stuff. And it just, like I said, it may be ancestral and maybe from a different time in your life. You don't know. But drop the stinking rope. Let's cultivate spaces and not only like a space where you live, but maybe a time as a container 15 minutes at the beach, 10 minutes at this beautiful park. Cultivate spaces where you are not distracted. You are not on your phone. Because if you're on your phone and you're in a beautiful forest, like why bother, right? But you're in this space where you're there and you're listening to Mother Nature. Okay. Mother Nature, man, like is amazing. And I found myself as I was leaving the forest, I was walking out just saying, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, think about that. Like we as humans think a lot of times, what are we going to get out of this? What are we going to get out of this situation? But really, think about plants and flowers and trees. They're not asking, what am I getting out of it? They're just giving you fresh air, clean vibe, great energy. The tree is literally took like ancestral trauma from me. Dang, like and wanted nothing in return. You think about that. You think about that. Like, isn't that amazing? How can we cultivate a space where not only we are up for letting go, but that also, once we let go, that enables us to receive too. So sometimes we can't receive things in our life because other things are there in its place. Like, how many of you have had the experience where maybe you've had like a friend group drop you or been ghosted by people? I know that I have been unceremoniously removed from the group chat more than once. And you kind of feel sad and you're like, oh my gosh, but my friends, right? But at the same time, you're making space for other people that are more aligned with your mission to come to you. And that's always what ends up happening. And so I remember, I think it's like 2 years ago now, I was unceremoniously removed from the group chat. And it's like now I can laugh at it. I was really upset at the time because, especially people who are like, oh my gosh, we're such good friends. And now I recognize there's some love bombing there going on. But especially people who are like, girl, you're so cool. Girl, let's hang out. Like those kinds of people. And then nothing. I made room. I made room. And who came in? I mean, they didn't come in right away. They didn't come in the next day. But who came in? But some beautiful people in my life. Like, I could have a crisis today, and I know at least 3 people to call, and, like, one of them's local. I mean, she'd be on my doorstep in, like, 15 minutes. Having those kinds of relationships is beautiful. And I would not have that if I hadn't let go. Imagine if I had been removed from the group chat and still texting, hey guys, and still putting out that energy. I wouldn't have the space to let all these other beautiful people in, right? It's the same with whatever the heck else you're holding on to. So I want to encourage you today to make room for magic, make room for something special. Give yourself time to drop the rope. Give yourself a space where you can cultivate this magic in your life. If you like this topic, I'm going to be hosting a workshop this fall talking about how we can deepen this relationship with our intuition and use that for practical things. Practical, I'm talking like business, life. It's not just like woo woo in the ether, but practical things in our lives. Because I know you. You may not think I know you, but I was a financial advisor for like a minute and a half. And one thing I heard from my clients, who 90% were women, one thing I heard from them was basically that they knew what was best for them and their money. They had been talked out of it by men who thought they knew better. The men were their husbands, their boyfriends, their dads, their brothers, their whatever. So, how do we, instead of listening to all those other voices, we just listen to the deep, innate knowing that we already have? How do we follow that guidance? And that's what the workshop is all about. So, that is exciting. That's coming up in the fall. Also, later, this permission granted. Permission granted is your space to hang out with other women who are going through their villain era. Permission granted is the place that you're going to find other women that are rad, just like you, who have maybe gone through this experience of being the villain. Maybe they haven't, but regardless, they're on their path to having the best life ever. So that is something that's totally fun that's coming out at the end of the month. So, friends, thanks for joining me on this journey to share with you about my magical experience in Montana. Seriously, if there was an affordable cabin in the woods that was available to me, I probably would have moved in right then. I'm like, we can get everything shipped from Texas. No, probably not. My son's still in high school. So, but you know what I'm saying. So that experience in Montana was so impactful. And I want to recognize that like a lot of it was my spirit team, God lining things up for me, but also it's possible that I had to be sick to be able to listen. I had to be not feeling great and not having headphones and in order to receive the message. So again, like all these things happen for a reason. All right, friends, that's my experience in Montana. I highly recommend going. It is seriously like I feel like it's an open frontier. I feel like I was like in the movie 1923 or something like that. Um Beautiful place and very magical. And you know what? I talked to other people who've been to Montana and they've had similar experiences in that it is a really magical place. Going to the forest is actually one of the most regenerative things that you can do. And wasn't there a whole book about forest bathing or something like that? I don't know. You'll have to look that up on your spare time. All right, friends. That's it for me this week. I love you so much, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Next week, I'm going to post all about permission granted and how you can get in on this.